Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai go Haribo, 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 Nitai go Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol. Thank you, Hare Krishna. So, yeah, I'm going to stand up. I'm looking out there and is there some translations? Is there Bengali translation? Is there Russian? Oh, okay, there's translations. All right, okay, good. So I try to speak a little slowly. So I'm going to stand because the story of Raghunath is a very dramatic story. And I enjoy to try to present these stories in a dramatic way, which is not so easy to do when you're just sitting down. When you're standing up, you can walk and you can show your hands and do various things. So with your permission, light is there. Okay, so I got to be back here. Is that where? Right here. Okay, so my line is right there. All right. Okay, good enough. So with your permission, with the permission of all the assembled devotees, begging your forgiveness, begging your mercy upon someone so unqualified to serve Srila Prabhupada in any way, what to speak of representing the character, the life of Sri Raghunath Das. Such an extraordinary, extraordinary person. His story begins at a very young age. He was the child of one of the wealthiest landowners in the area known as Saptagram. Coincidentally, the community known as Suvarnamalik that currently resides in Saptagram and that traces its lineage to that area many, 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 many years, is the same family in which Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, made his appearance when the former fishing villages of Kalighat and so on were transformed or were created into Calcutta by, I think his name was Job Charnock. He invited the wealthy Suvarna Malik community. He said, I'll give you land, I'll give you facilities. You come, you start your business here in my new city. And so they did. And we got Boro Bazaar of Calcutta. But this is now 500 something years ago. And the young Raghunath got to hear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived in the village of Shantipur, which is just across the Ganges, not too far. And he rushed to see him. Mahaprabhu was making his first attempt to go to Vrindavan. Ultimately, on the request of Rupa and Sanatan in Ramkeli, he turned back. But at this time, he was accompanied by perhaps thousands of devotees proceeding to go with Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan. Young Raghunath rushed there to meet him, thinking, I can also join. I can go. Although young Raghunath had everything, he was the child of the wealthiest family, still, he himself had no attraction. He had no attraction for the worldly life. He wanted to go with Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu told him no, not now. Stay. Keep your devotion within. Externally, just be ordinary, be normal. Keep your bhakti inside for now. And he did so. He was married, but still, although he had the loveliest, most beautiful wife, he still had no attraction. But he externally behaved, and in fact, he was very instrumental in the rescue of his uncle Hiranya. At that time, Hiranya was given the responsibility to collect taxes in that area. And the deal was that he would collect so much and he had to pay this much. So there was a margin he could keep. But he, said, well, I'll keep a little more. There was another powerful chaudhary of that area who got a little envious, reported him. Hiranya was informed somehow. He fled. And to try to catch hold of Hiranya, they arrested Raghunath. But Raghunath's character was such that the Qazi, or I don't know what, the magistrate, who was charged to catch and punish Hiranya, couldn't punish him. Finally, through Raghunath's expertise, he was able to convince the policeman, I can't remember, he had a title, to let him go. He brought them together and he negotiated a settlement, and it all worked out. This was the character of Raghunath. But in his heart, he longed to join Mahaprabhu. One day, he hears that Nityananda has arrived in Panihati, not too far from his residence. When he runs there to meet Nityananda, Nityananda calls him out, "Oh, hey, you thief! You're just a thief! You've stolen your presence. I'm punishing you. You have to feed everyone." And thus became the Chiradoya festival. From this point on, Raghunath was just yearning. How? But his parents could sense that Raghunath was so eager. They made arrangements to keep him always under guard because they were afraid he would run off. In this way, Raghunath was thinking, how can I get free? How can I get free of this worldly life? How can I go to Mahaprabhu? He separated himself. He would just go and sleep in the Durga Mandap outside of the residence. One day, their family priest, Yadunandana Acharya, he arrived in the dead of night practically and said, I have to go. I cannot serve the deity for some days. Please, you arrange someone to take care, some Brahmin to take care. And Raghunath began to think, yes, my chance is coming. My chance is coming. He walked some way with his guru, Yadunandan. At one point he said, yes, don't worry, you go ahead. Don't worry, I will take care of everything. Just go on. Yadunandan felt satisfied and he proceeded. The moment that Yadunandan was out of sight, Raghunath fled. He knew that as soon as his parents they would send some guards, they would find him and drag him back to that worldly life. He knew that if he went on the main road, certainly he would be caught. He knew at the time when Nityananda had come, he was thinking at that time, I could go now. But he knew he would be with all these people. He would easily be found out and dragged back home. So instead of taking the normal path, he went the opposite way. He walked north. He walked on the outer sides. He went without food. He went on the thorny paths. He looked every caution he took. Somehow I will reach Puri. I will reach Mahaprabhu. That was his only desire. And he did. Maybe 10, 15 days he walked, eating 2 or 3 times in that time. And finally he arrives. He knows that Mahaprabhu is staying in the house of Kashi Mishra. And he goes and falls at his feet. And Mahaprabhu sees him. Ah, Raghunath, you have come. He gives Raghunath to the charge of Swarup Damodar, exclaiming, now we have 3 Raghunaths. I'm trying to remember. There was Raghunath. Raghunath Bhatta was not there at that time, I don't think. Anyway, there were another 2 Raghunaths. So he became known as the Raghunath of Swarup, because Swarup Damodar took charge of him. He was fed the remnants of Mahaprabhu's food, cleaned up a bit, and then he began his life with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he began to exhibit his extraordinary character of renunciation. Raghunath Das, born of the most wealthy, capable of having anything, capable of enjoying anything in this world, went the exact opposite way. To renounce to the nth degree. He began taking prasad from Mahaprabhu's remnants, but then thought, I'm not worthy. And he began to beg at the Singadwara gate. Gradually, he stopped even that and began to eat in the public places. In every way, he tried to minimize just how to live the life of one who has realized their actual nature, the servant, the servant, the servant. Advaita Acharya, it was Shivananda Sen. Shivananda Sen arrived and reported that on his way he had been, you could say, accosted or interrogated or questioned by the guards sent by Raghunath's parents to find him. And he reported that, no, he's not with us. But then they came along, they discovered Raghunath's situation. They reported back. And from that time, later they brought some 400 gold coins and all kinds of things to try to make. And by this time, his parents had realized it's a lost cause. There's no way we can get Raghunath back. There's no way. He is now the property of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But at least we can provide him something so he can eat, he can have. But he wouldn't even accept it. Instead, they just made some arrangements. He gave it to some, and then let it be used to feed Mahaprabhu. And that went on for some time. But then Raghunath thought, no, that's not what Mahaprabhu wants of me. And that he also stopped. In this way, he passed his days, chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Associating with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At one point, he came to Mahaprabhu and he asked, please instruct me. Please give me some personal instruction. How can I be a pure devotee? Mahaprabhu responded with a very famous verse noted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I don't remember the first part fully. It's something like Balona Kaive, Balona Poive. Just basically the translation is, don't eat very opulently, don't dress very opulently, live very simply. And he also told him, Chinadapi sunichena, Tarorapi sahishnuna, Amanina, Monadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. Around this time, Mahaprabhu presented Raghunath with what would become the treasure of his life. Some 3 years before, one Brahmin, I believe the name was Sadananda or something like that, had presented Mahaprabhu with a Govardhan Shila and a necklace of gunja berries. Now gunja is a bush that grows in the Braj area. And the berries are this deep red color. Those berries and that bush is considered to be a favorite of Srimati Radharani. Even Krishna wears a necklace of Gunjamala. So the Gunjamala worn by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there to invoke his consciousness of Sri Radha. That Govardhan Shila was worshipped by Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu would keep it on his head. He would touch it to his heart. He would shed tears. And he presented this to Raghunath. Raghunath accepted with such delight, such great joy. He inquired, well, now, how do I worship? He was given instruction how to, particularly very nice sweets should be offered to Giriraj, to Govardhan. And those arrangements were made to provide him with first-class kaja. You know the kaja of Puri. Those long, we call them the Jagannath tongues. So kaja and other sandesh. So he began what we now have as the worship of Govardhan, Giriraj, Govardhan Shila. And that Gunjamala became his constant companion. In this way, Raghunath reduced to the point where finally his eating habits, as you heard, he was eating by begging, then he was eating by going to the free distribution, and then he said, this is all just too much. And he began simply collecting the discarded rice, the rice that had been thrown in the drains. He would take that rice and he would wash it, and that's what he would eat. Sri Damodar came to know of this and came with Mahaprabhu and said, "Oh, Raghunath, we hear you're feasting these days. What are you hiding from us?" And Mahaprabhu took some of that broken, just rotten rice and Raghunath was so, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, this is the greatest prasad I've ever had." In this way, Raghunath spent his days with Mahaprabhu under the tutelage of Swarup Damodar. He stayed there. He was a young man at that time because, as I pointed out, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was proceeding to Vrindavan the first time, and it stopped in Shantipur, Raghunath was only 15, and Mahaprabhu must have been about 25 or so, maybe older. So there's a 10, 12 years gap at least. So he's spending his time there all the way to the time of Mahaprabhu's departure. And then he goes. He goes to Vrindavan. He goes to join with Rupa and Sanatan and begins to live at the banks of Radhakund. At that time, there was actually very little of Radhakund. When Mahaprabhu had come there earlier, he had traversed the entire Braj Mandal. And here and there, he would discover different places of the pastimes of Sri Krishna. And at one time, while entering into a field, he came across two small little ponds. And when he saw these, he was overwhelmed with the experience that this is Radha Kund. This is Shyama Kund. And in this way he bathed and took that water. And from that day, the Goswamis recognized that this is Radha Kund. But it was just still a little pond. Raghunath made his residence there, or he used to go there. He didn't actually have a residence. He simply sat there. And on one occasion, I think it was Rupa who passed by and was coming to see Raghunath, and he observed from a distance there was a tiger. There was a tiger approaching Raghunath. But then all of a sudden, he saw a cowherd boy, a little bluish, come out of the bushes and chase away the tiger. That was not only, that was not enough. On another occasion, he was thinking, what is happening? But then, one day, he observed Raghunath is chanting. There's a hot sun that day. And behind him, there's this beautiful lady holding her veil to shade Raghunath. And now he's thinking, not only Krishna, but Sri Radha is come to help Raghunath. This is no good. We're the servants. We're not to be served. And he told Raghunath, you can't do this. You must build yourself some little house. And he did so. And thus, it's told that the tradition of the Bhajan Kutir of the Goswamis began with the little house of Raghunath. Raghunath especially worshipped Giriraj. He wrote many poems in worship of Radha and Krishna. He wrote this wonderful prayers of Govardhanashtakam, Nija Nikatani Vasham, Dehi Govardhan Tvam. Nija Nikatani Vasham. Please, please, oh Giriraj, give me shelter, give me a place, give me a residence at your feet. One day, and the details I don't quite remember. I think it's a little similar to the story of Rupa and the merchant on the Jamuna. Anyway, there was some merchant. I don't quite remember all the details of why or how that merchant came to Raghunath. But he did and offered service, and offered the service of establishing Radha Kund in a permanent fashion. Thus, under the supervision of Raghunath Das Goswami, the area of Radha Kund and Shama Kund were excavated. At that time, they actually discovered small deities of Radha and Krishna, which you can see just on the side of Radha Kund, on a little hill, is the Purana Mandir of Radha and Krishna at Radha Kund. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he is our Prayojana Acharya. Recently we have been hearing about the importance of keeping our goal in mind. Perhaps some of you have heard of the 7 habits. In Russia, they also teach it as the 7 facets or something like this. But this one modern-day guru, he teaches 7 habits of highly successful people. And one of them is begin with the end in mind. I'm not sure if it was in the Bhagavatam class or in the ILS that I was hearing Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj talking about how, although we talk about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, it begins with Sambandha. We have to begin by understanding who we are. It must begin with understanding where we are. And then, what are we supposed to do? But to understand what are we supposed to do, we have to understand where do we want to go? What is our goal? Raghunath, he is our Prayojana. Prayojana, the goal of our path, has been displayed by Raghunath. Now, ordinary people would look and think us crazy to take Raghunath and his life as our goal. He renounced everything. He gave up everything. He had everything, but he gave it all up. Others would think that's simply crazy. But when we see Raghunath's renunciation, we also see Raghunath's treasure. We see what he gave up, but we also see what he received. We see the treasure of ecstatic love for Krishna, such that what he lost seemed like garbage. All the Goswamis, in fact, have demonstrated this. We've all heard the famous story of Sanatan and the touchstone. How one devotee of Lord Shiva was worshiping the Lord to the extent that Shiva actually gave his darshan. And the devotee asked, "Please, my Lord, I want the most valuable thing in the world. I know you can give it." And Shiva said, "Oh yes, in fact, just nearby. You just approach this one sadhu. He has the most valuable thing, and he will give it to you." This, I think he was a Brahmin, went and saw Sanatan, and Sanatan said, "Oh, yeah, well, valuable. Let's see, what do I have that's valuable? Well, oh, yeah, I remember now. That someone gave me this touchstone. It can turn iron to gold. I think that counts as pretty valuable, I guess. Yeah. Oh, yeah, may I have this?" Shiva said you would give me. "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, take it. It's just over there in that rubbish pile over there." And he went and he collected this, and I've got it. He proceeded some distance and started to think, well, hold on. If this is the most valuable, then why did Sanatan keep it in the garbage pile? And he returned and explained, "Goswamiji, I'm confused. If this is the most valuable, then why is it being kept there?" Well, actually, it's not the most valuable thing, but I want the most valuable thing. And Sanatan said, "Well, take the holy names of Krishna. Take Krishna Prema by chanting his holy names. That is the most valuable thing." This devotee actually was moved, touched. He had been injected by Sanatan's love and grace, and he took it. So Raghunath exemplifies that same mood, that the most valuable treasure is to serve the divine lotus feet of Shri Radha and Krishna. That should be our goal. That should be our goal. And he demonstrates the achievement of that goal. We start with sambandha. We start with an understanding of who we are. But then the next question is, where are we? Where should we be? Where is our goal? Where should we go? We just came from a presentation of the MOVP. We've heard of the TOVP, right? But there's also the MOVP. TOVP, of course, is the temple of the Vedic planetarium, and MOVP is the museum of the Vedic planetarium. So as you should know, our temple under construction here has 3 sections. In the center is, of course, the main temple for Sri Panchatattva, Sri Radhamadava, and the Guru Parampara. On the east is Nrsingadev's temple. But on the west, in another dome that looks like the dome of Nrsingadev, will be an entire museum, entire experience that visitors can go in, can enter into, and come out enlightened. We were seeing the presentation, how it begins with a sort of let's pull you out experience, pull you out of wherever you are and get you ready. And then move you into the experience, the question of who am I? And then progress from the who am I to where am I? What is this universe? What is this this place that I find myself in, this material world? And then to progress to understand what's beyond this that I experience. And where can I go to get out of the suffering, the confusion, the loneliness, the despair of this world? Enter into the real world, the spiritual world. So, as we know where we are, we know who we are, we have to know where we're going, and then we look how. How do we get from here to there? So we begin with the end in mind, and then we make a plan. It's a simple plan. Follow in the footsteps of the devotees, like Raghunath. Now, most of us will not be able to completely follow Raghunath's footsteps. First of all, we don't start in the place that Raghunath started from, having everything. And what to speak of having that depth of longing, that depth of desire, of spiritual desire that he had, that could take him out from his comfortable home into the forests, into the night, with nothing, just running to catch Chaitanya Mahaprabhu somehow or other. Without any fear, simply driven by that desire. We don't have, at least I know I don't have, that kind of inner strength. But still, I can follow the example by making that same perspective my perspective. Chinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina monadena, kirtaniya sadahari. I can chant as he did. I can feel, I can try to feel, I can at least pray to feel as low as the straw on the street. I can try to be tolerant. There's so much disturbance in this world from every direction. I can let me tolerate. I can try to be amanina. I can try to not desire at least, or at least try to conspire for some sort of prestige and position. But I can offer respects to everyone. And I can chant the holy names of Krishna. In this way I can follow our Prayojana Acharya, Raghunath Das Goswami. So I hope I was able to present something of the life of Raghunath Das, his meeting with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We could, let's see, we have a little bit more time. So I was thinking to go now to the source. And for this I will sit down to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we can read a bit about the meeting of Raghunath Das and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so we'll start at verse number, this is, well, it's verse number 189. Okay. 189 of, this is Madhya Lila, but I'm not sure which chapter. Chapter 6, okay, of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I'm just going to start reading, and we'll fill in a little bit here and there with things to add to it. So we're starting from CC Antya 6, it's Antya Lila, I'm sorry, Antya Lila 6, 189. I'm just going to read the English translations and purports where they are. When Raghunath Das met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was sitting with his companions, headed by Swarup Damodar. Sitting at a distant place in the courtyard, he fell down to offer obeisances. Then Mukunda Datta said, Here is Raghunath. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these words, he immediately welcomed Raghunath Das. Come here, he said. Raghunath Das then clasped the lotus feet of the Lord. But the Lord stood up and embraced him out of his causeless mercy. Raghunath Das offered prayers at the lotus feet of all the devotees, headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami. Seeing the special mercy Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had bestowed upon Raghunath Das, they embraced him also. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, The mercy of Lord Krishna is stronger than anything else. Therefore the Lord has delivered you from the ditch of materialistic life, which is like a hole into which people pass stool. Whoa. That is about the strongest statement that you could make about material life. Vishtagarta Vishtagarta. Vishaya Vishtagorta. We've heard about the blind well, right? But this goes even a little further. The hole in the ground that people evacuate in. Srila Prabhupada comments on this, that according to the law of karma, everyone is destined to suffer and enjoy according to a certain material standard. But the mercy of Lord Krishna is so powerful that the Lord can change all the reactions of one's past karma or fruitive activities. And he described that it was that mercy, Mahaprabhu is saying that it is the mercy of Krishna that delivers us from the clutches of material life. Raghunath attempted, or aspired, I should say, to escape from his material life, but couldn't do so until the Lord made the suitable arrangements and then paved the way. Still he had to endeavor. It wasn't that the Lord just picked him up on a flower airplane and flew him over to Puri and dropped him down. No. Raghunath still had to suffer to get there. But all of it was the mercy of Sri Krishna. Raghunath Das answered within his mind, I do not know who Krishna is. I simply know that your mercy, O my Lord, has saved me from my family life. The Lord continued, your father and his elder brother are both related as brothers to my grandfather, Nilambara Chakravarti. Therefore, I consider them my grandfathers. It's interesting, the family relationships in Mahaprabhu's Leela that extend all the way to us, in one sense, because we're all connected to Srila Prabhupada, who is connected by his family to Udarandatta Thakur of Chaitanya Leela, who is connected, as we understood, to that Suvarna Malik family, who is connected to the family of Raghunath Das, who's connected to the family of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's all these interesting family relationships which bring together the devotees. Since your father and his elder brother are younger brothers of Nilambar Chakravarti, I may joke about them in this way. What was the joke? The hole in the pass stool. He compared their life to a hole in which you pass stool. Pretty kind of strong words. My dear Raghunath, your father and his elder brother are just like worms in stool in the ditch of material enjoyment. In America, we'd say that Mahaprabhu is talking like, well, I won't go there. There are certain communities in America that friendship is expressed through certain kinds of insults. I don't know if that's true in any of your communities that you're familiar with, but there are some communities in which you express your friendship by insulting others. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this particular instance, he used that friendship and family relationship to actually to speak in a insulting but joking way. But in one sense, he was also telling the truth, because he says, although your father and uncle are charitable to Brahmins and greatly help them, they are nevertheless not pure Vaishnavas. However, they are almost like Vaishnavas. So, this is a lesson that we have different standards of Vaishnavas. We have the Kanishta Adhikaris, we have the Madhyam Adhikaris, and we have the Uttam Adhikaris. So various levels of Vaishnavas, various standards, qualifications will prescribe different relationships as devotees, we try to engage ourselves in what we call the madhyam relationship, whereby we make friends with the devotees. We have we try to assist and help those who are innocent, but we avoid those who are inimical to devotional service. Mahaprabhu continued, those who are attached to materialistic life and are blind to spiritual life must act in such a way that they are bound to repeated birth and death by the actions and reactions of their activities. By his own free will, Lord Krishna has delivered you from such a condemned materialistic life. Therefore, the glories of Lord Krishna's causeless mercy cannot be expressed. Seeing Raghunath Das skinny and dirty because of having traveled for 12 days and fasted, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his heart melting due to causeless mercy, spoke to Swarup Damodar. My dear Swarup, he said, I entrust this Raghunath Das to you. Please accept him as your son or servant. There are now 3 Raghunaths among my associates. From this day forward, this Raghunath should be known as the Raghu of Swarup Damodar. So, Vaidya Raghunath is one of them, who's described in Adi Leela 11:22. So yes, Bhatta Raghunath and Dasa Raghunath. There we go. Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu grasped the hand of Raghunath Das and entrusted him to the hands of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Swarup Damodar Goswami accepted Raghunath Das, saying, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever you order is accepted. He then embraced Raghunath Das again. I cannot properly express the affection of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his devotees. Being merciful towards Raghunath Das, the Lord spoke as follows to Govinda. On the way, Raghunath Das has fasted and undergone hardships for many days. Therefore, take good care of him for some days so that he may eat to his satisfaction. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das, go bathe in the sea, then see Lord Jagannath in the temple and return here to take your meal. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up and went to perform his midday duties, and Raghunath met all the devotees present. Having seen the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu upon Raghunath Das, all the devotees, struck with wonder, praised his good fortune. Raghunath Das took his bath in the sea and saw Lord Jagannath. Then he returned to Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm going to skip ahead here, just give me a second, to the special instructions. Oops. That he gave to Raghunath Das. Okay. He would praise, by the way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would praise his renunciation. Okay, so this is what he said. This is a very famous verse, text 236. I'll read the Bengali. Gramya kata na sunibe, gramya varta na kahibe. Balo na kahibe, ar balo na poribe. Do not talk like people in general or hear what they say. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. So gramya kata, ordinary talks of common men. Don't listen to that. Don't hear that. And don't just speak about those things. In other words, no prajalpa. That was his first instruction. No prajalpa, no prajalpa. And then he says, you should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. So be moderate. Don't go after the rich food, the fancy clothing. And then he says, he gives a different version of basically what later he gives as the Trinadapi verse. Amani manadahana Krishna nama sada laibe. Raje Radha Krishna seva manase karibe. Do not expect honor, but offer all respect to others. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So, he gave him these instructions and then said, now learn from Sarup Damodar. Raghunath Das spent the rest of his time, Mahaprabhu's time, he was there. He became actually the principal source for Krishnadas Kaviraj's Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas consulted him primarily to learn of the pastimes of Mahaprabhu in Puri. So we can thank Raghunath Das, in fact, as Krishnadas Kaviraj does, begging at the feet of Rupa and Raghunath, desiring their mercy. He has compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So thank you. We have a little bit more time, if you like, if there's any questions or comments or other realizations about Raghunath Das. I apologize for any shortcomings. I know there are many in my presentation. I'm not so well educated on these topics, but I tried to do what I could to enter into some appreciation of the extraordinary personality of Raghunath Das Goswami. Hare Krishna.
Any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can you little briefly elaborate regarding Raghunath Das Goswami, the last days, please?
Oh, good question. I know that he lived quite some time, but I don't actually remember. I've read it, but I don't remember much about his last days. I know that he lived till a
এখনই
good
উঠে
old
যাবেন
age.
না। হরে কৃষ্ণা, বসুন, এখন সময় হলো না।
It's okay. It's okay. They want prasadam, I think. That's always acceptable. But he stayed at, as we said, he stayed at Radhakund. He worshipped Radha Gopinath. Therefore, we consider Radha Gopinath to be our Prayojan Archa Murtis. And his samadhi is there, right there at the banks of Radhakund. So we know that he lived his last days there. When, as I said, he was quite aged when he left this world. That's as much as I know about Raghunath's disappearance.
Any other question?
Someone in the back there, one lady.
প্রভু বলছেন যে রঘুনাথ দাস ঠাকুর পুরীতে ড্রেন থেকে নিয়ে প্রসাদ পেয়েছেন। তো আমাদের চেতনাটাকে কিভাবে মানে এরকম যদি আমরা এই যে আমাদের পরিবেশ, এই পরিবেশে যদি কেউ একটু আমরা মানে নিম্ন স্তরের হয় তাহলে কেউ ওইটা হাতটাওই দেয় না, এরকম আছে। তো তো আমাদের চেতনাটাকে কিভাবে এই ওই জায়গায় নিয়ে আমরা ঠিক আমি ঠিক আমার আমার কথা বলতেছি আমি কিভাবে ওই রঘুনাথ দাস ঠাকুরের মতো ইয়ে স্তরে ইয়ে করতে পারি।
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Mataji is asking question that Raghunath Das Goswami was collecting the food from the rice from the drain. It is good, but how to understand that? And at this position, at this present stage, if we do like that, nobody appreciates that. So how I can implement that mode of Raghunath in my life?
Yeah. There is a term that we often use called artificial renunciation. The renunciation of Raghunath Das is exemplary, but not to be imitated. So there is a crucial difference between imitation and following. If we try to imitate the activity of Raghunath Das without having the inner adhikara that he had, it will be a show only. It will not be real. Raghunath Das acted the way he did because he felt compelled to act that way. He was compelled to do it. He was not trying to impress anyone. Actually, he was. He was trying to please, not impress, but please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he knew Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to pull him closer and closer. And he felt this would help him to get closer to Mahaprabhu. But for us, we have to take the path of vairagya in steps. None of us, well, I shouldn't say none of us, some of us may be qualified, may have the adhikara, the lack of desire that is necessary to be able to behave in the way that Raghunath Das did. I'm reminded of a story here in Mayapur where during Srila Prabhupada's time, where there was one devotee, one of Prabhupada's disciples, I think, as far as I remember, he was from the West, and he came here to be a Babaji. And I don't think he actually accepted like a Babaji vesh or whatever, but he said, I'm going to chant 3 lakh names like Haridas Thakur. I'm going to just sit there and chant, and I'll just, whatever comes, food, I'll just have a little whatever. So he went off into, at the time, where the Goshala is now was a mango orchard. Just next to the cows were there, and then next to it was a mango orchard that Jayapataka Maharaj had planted. I think he'd planted it, or maybe it was there already. But anyway, there was this mango orchard, so he went out there and he made himself a little shelter, and he began his chanting, and devotees would bring some prasadam. And so they would bring him some prasadam, and he go, oh, yeah, okay. He made what we later saw was actually a show of being detached. And actually Prabhupada said, well, you should test this person. So tomorrow, don't bring any prasadam. Okay. So they didn't bring some prasadam until later in the afternoon. And the devotee was there and said, "Where were you? You didn't bring prasadam." He began to, okay. And he started, yeah, I'm supposed to be renounced. So he's, it's all right. So they did this for 1 or 2 days. And on the third day, he was gone. He ran off. Because he had no adhikar. He had no actual, qualification to be so renounced. So for us, it's a matter of step by step. We give up a little here, we give up a little there, and we gradually reduce. But the main thing for us is not the reduction. It's not the, in some areas we have to reduce. We have to try to live simply. But the main thing for us is the increase. How do we increase our chanting? How do we increase our devotional service? That should be our aim. Increasing our devotional service, increasing our chanting, increasing our hearing. That should be our aim. And naturally, as we do that, other things will begin to, our desire for other things will begin to reduce automatically, naturally. So that's our method that Srila Prabhupada has taught us. Increase your chanting, increase your service, and then your desire for material things will go down. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Mataji, mujhe kar lo. Okay.
Okay, so it's 8:30,
Okay.
and I see that
Everybody is very enthusiastically
people
standing in the line to take
should
prasadam.
take prasadam, which is important. Where would we be without prasadam?
Thank you very
Hare
much,
Krishna.
Prabhu, for the wonderful class. And हमरा प्रभु के धन्यवाद जानाबो. हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र बोले. We'll thank Prabhu by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you.
His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu ki. So we have reached to third day of Sravana Utsav. আমরা তৃতীয় দিন পেরিয়েছি।